नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयमुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवत्युत्तमश्लोके भक्तिन् भवति नैष्टिकी। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 18, texts 24 and 25. Text 24, I will read myself. गते राजनी साधीरे तत्र स्म रुदती पितुः न वेदयत् ततः सर्वम् उक्तं शर्मिष्ठाय कृतम्. Translation by His Divine Grace Srila Vicharanaravinda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. Thereafter, when the learned king returned to his palace, Devayani returned home crying and told her father Shukracharya about all that had happened because of Sharmishta. She told how she had been thrown into the well but was saved by the king. Text 25. Kindly repeat after me. Durmanaha Bhagavan Kavyaha Durmana Bhagavan Kavyaha Paurohityam Vigarhayan Paurohityam Vigarhayan Stuvan Vrittim Cha Kapotim Stuvan Vrittim Cha Kapotim Duhitra Saha Yayau Purat Duhitra Sa Yayau Purat Durmana Bhagavan Kavyaha Paurohityam Vigarhayan Stuvan Vrittim Cha Kapoti Duhitra Sa Yayau Purat Durmana Bhagavan Kavyaha Paurohityam Vigarhayan Stuvan Vrittim Cha Kapoti Duhitra Sa Yayau Purat. Durmanaha, being very unhappy. Bhagavan, the most powerful. Kavyaha, Shukracharya. Paurohityam, the business of priesthood. Vigarhayan, condemning. Stuvan, praising. Vrittim, the profession. Cha, and Kapotim, of collecting grains from the field. Duhitra, with his daughter. Saha, he, Shukracharya. Yayau, went. Purat, from his own residence. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace Srila Vicharananda Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Translation. As Shukracharya listened to what had happened to Devayani, his mind was very much aggrieved, condemning the profession of priesthood and praising the profession of Unchavritti, collecting grains from the fields. He left home with his daughter. Kindly repeat the translation. As Shukracharya listened to what had happened to Devayani, his mind was very much aggrieved, condemning the profession of priesthood and praising the profession of Unchavritti, collecting grains from the fields. He left home with his daughter. Purport. When a Brahmana adopts the profession of a kapota or pigeon, he lives by collecting grains from the field. This is called Unchavritti. A Brahmana who takes to this Unchavritti profession is called first class because he depends completely on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead and does not beg from anyone. Although the profession of begging is allowed for a Brahmana or sannyasi, one does better if he can avoid such a profession and completely depend on the mercy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead for maintenance. Shukracharya was certainly very sorry that because of his daughter's complaint, he had to go to his disciple to beg some mercy, which he was obliged to do because he had accepted the profession of priesthood. In his heart, Shukracharya did not like his profession, but since he had accepted it, he was obliged to go unwillingly to his disciple to settle the grievance submitted by his daughter. Thus ends the Bhaktivedanta purport and translation to Canto 9, Chapter 18, texts 24 and 25 of Srimad Bhagavatam. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prashtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschati Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, Sharmishta, when she took away the clothes of Devayani and went back to her home, because she was upset with Devayani's rebuking her for the minor mistake she had committed of taking her dress, putting on Devayani's dress. So she went away from that place, and Devayani was left there without any clothing. And further, Sarmishta had pushed Devayani into the well and left that place. So Devayani was not clothed, and she was also stuck in the well. At that time, King Yayati came and rescued her, brought her out of the well, and because of which Devayani felt obliged to King Yayati, and also she was attracted by the king's features, and so she requested the king to accept her as his wife, and the king also considered the request, and finally Yayati also thought of marrying Devayani. So after this happened, the king went to his palace, and Devayani also came back to home, but crying to her father. And she explained what all happened and how she was saved by the king. That means the father understood. Okay, now my daughter wants me to go to the king and request him to marry his daughter formally, make a formal request. So he had to go to the palace. So that's the uh, context here. But he was not very happy going to the king to beg the king to marry his daughter. So that's what is being expressed here by Shukracharya. Durmanaha. When he heard what had happened to Devayani, the injustice which had happened to Devayani, Durmana, Shukracharya became very unhappy that he was uh, not treated properly by Sharmishta. Vigarhayan Paurohityam, and he condemned, Vigarhayan condemned Paurohityam, the business of a priesthood or a Brahmana, profession of a Brahmana, because Brahmana's profession also involves begging from others' home. So therefore he condemned it. Hmm? So Paurohityam Vigarhayan. On the other hand, Stuvan Vrittim Cha Kapotim. He praised the profession of Uncha Vritti, or collecting grains, leftover grains from the agricultural fields. So condemning his profession, at the same time praising the profession of Uncha Vritti, which means collecting grains, leftover grains from the field. Duhitra Saha Yayau Purat. He left his home to the king's palace to make a formal proposal to the king about his daughter's marriage. So we can see even in such highly elevated families, the father would go to make the match. The father of the girl, in this case Shukracharya, the girl in this case Devayani. So the father is going to the king to make a formal proposal, and they're not deciding upon among themselves. Although they had some conversation, both accepting each other, still they didn't go ahead with that. So Devayani wanted her father to complete the marriage proposal. So that's how Shukracharya had to go asking King Yayati. But actually, he was not very happy because uh, this marriage is not very high grade marriage, because it is Pratiloma marriage. Hmm? A Brahmana daughter marrying a Kshatriya husband is called Pratiloma marriage. It is not very desirable. But still, because his daughter desired, so he wanted to satisfy her. Only for that reason, he was going to the palace of King Yayati and beg him to marry his daughter. So that's why it is said here that he somehow was very unhappy, unwilling, but he had to address the grievance of his daughter, so he accepted. So here, one important point Prabhupada is highlighting the purport is that uh, when a Brahmana adopts the profession of a unchavritti or the profession of a pigeon, it is considered high grade. Because he lives by collecting grains from the field. So generally in the Varnashrama Dharma, everybody has an occupation, form of livelihood. So Brahmanas live by yajana, yajana, patana, patana, dana, pratigraha. So 6 ways where he can earn his livelihood: by teaching Vedic literatures, and by himself studying Vedic literature, by performing yajna and teaching yajna, and by accepting charity and giving charity. In this way, he maintains his life. But Shukracharya is saying, if he adopts the profession of a pigeon, because a pigeon goes to an agricultural field and picks up some food grains and eats. This is called unchavritti. Similarly, if a brahmana can take to this profession of unchavritti, he is considered first class. That means he does not depend on anyone other than the arrangement of the Supreme Lord. When he depends directly on the Supreme Lord, on the mercy of the Supreme Lord, then he is in a first class position. And he does not beg from anyone. Although Brahmanas and sannyasis are allowed to beg from householders, still here Prabhupada is saying he does better if he does not go for begging also, and completely depend on the mercy of the Supreme Lord for his maintenance. So we can see this kind of standard and life being practiced by great devotees in the past. There's a very nice example in the life of Sripad Raghunath Das Goswami, wherein in the Chaitanya Charitamrita it is explained that Raghunath Das Goswami was the son of a very rich person. Actually, they were Majumdars in the government of Bengal those days, and they were very rich. He was a tax collector, his father. So their earning was very, very high. He was the son of a very rich man. But somehow he developed great attraction to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and then he leaves home to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So his father got to know that Raghunath Das Goswami had gone to Puri to meet Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and be with him. So being concerned, his father sent him 4 servants and 400 rupees. So 500 years back. So Prabhupada says 500 years back, 400 rupees was a real big sum. Regularly his father would send so that his son, although not with him, would be comfortable. So Raghunath Das Goswami would invite lot of sannyasis and feed them nicely. So he would do a lot of Vaishnava Seva with all the money which he was getting. He was comfortable in that way. So then even Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself was invited for Bhiksha. Bhiksha means actually a sannyasi would be invited to have lunch in a Brahmana's house. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also accepted this Bhiksha from Raghunath Das Goswami. Then after some days, the invitation stopped. He would not get any invite. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked his secretary, Swarup Damodar, what happened? Raghunath is not inviting me nowadays for lunch. Then Swarup Damodar informed, oh my lord, actually he had stopped taking any assistance from his father. In fact, he told the men, please don't come anymore. I don't want any assistance from any of you, nor my father's money. So he sent them back. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, then how is he maintaining himself? So now he would stand in front of the Jagannath Mandir, and as the pujaris would crisscross, would come, would go up and down, they would give some prasadam to him. So in that way, whatever was coming, he was getting from the pujari, he was happy to accept that. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was happy. He has advanced in his dependence on the Lord, one step ahead. Then after some days, he stopped standing in front of Jagannath temple also for waiting for prasadam. Then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, then how is he maintaining himself now? He would accept the rejected rice from the Lord's kitchen and wash that and eat that. So then when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu heard this, he was very, very happy internally. So in order to encourage Raghunath Das Goswami, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to meet Raghunath Das Goswami personally this time. And then he said, oh Raghunath, I heard you are having very nice prasadam. So I would also like to share. Why don't you share with me? You are not telling me that you are eating such nice prasadam. So then Raghunath said, no, 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 my lord, this is not fit for your eating. Then he said, no, no, no. How do you say that? Then he said, no, this is actually the rice which is left out and washed in the kitchen. So it is not suitable for your eating. So no, this is Jagannath's Mahaprasadam. How can you say that? And then he actually took some rice and then he ate that rice. And he said, after eating that rice, oh, it is so nectarian and you are saying it is not fit for my eating. How can you say this? So Raghunath Das was very, very unhappy. But the Lord was very, very happy in his heart, seeing his level of renunciation. Then after some time, Raghunath Das Goswami finally came to the point of eating very little butter every alternate day. So Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu became extremely happy. So this is a practical living example of a devotee depending on the mercy of the Lord, how the Lord is making arrangement for everyone. And the devotee is living and showing by example. There was one more nice reference in Chaitanya Charitamrita again about how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu through his devotees, great uh, devotees, showing us how we should depend on the mercy of the Lord for our livelihood, our maintenance, and not in anything else. And how we should give up all kinds of arrangements, save and accept, depending on the mercy of the Lord. This is regarding Sanatana Goswami, that when Sanatana Goswami retired from the active government service, he was also in a very high elevated position. So he gave up that, renounced it, that position voluntarily to join Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and to serve the Lord. And at some point he had acquired one nice uh, quilt. So he had given up everything, but he kept one quilt with him. Very nice quilt. So then, whenever Chaitanya Mahaprabhu would meet Sanatana Goswami, he would glance at that quilt. So then finally Sanatana Goswami understood that the Lord is saying that you have given up everything. Why are you still holding on to this good quilt? So he gave up that also. Then when the Lord got to know, he was very, very happy. So in this way, when we become Nishkinchana or Akinchana, the Lord will be very pleased. You have actually learned to depend on the Lord at that point of time. When you give up all material possessions and learn to depend on the Supreme Lord alone, that is a first class position. You can realize how the Lord is actually maintaining and not any arrangement in this world, not to depend on anyone in this world. So you will actually uh, realize this truth that the Lord is making all arrangements. As the Upanishads say, Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kaman, that the Supreme Lord is maintaining all the living entities in the universe. But how do we realize that? So the Acharyas are shown by their practical example how the Lord is actually taking care of everyone. That is why uh, Shukadeva Goswami has made one prayer, has actually said one very famous verse from the Bhagavatam. Chirani kim patina santi dishanti bhiksham naivangripa parabrita sarito api ashushyan ruddha guha ki majito avati na upasannan kasmat bhajanti kavayo dana durmadhan dan. So Shukadeva Goswami is saying, are there no torn clothes lying on the common road? Do the trees which exist for maintaining others no longer give alms in charity? Na uh, uh, naivangripa parabrita. So whether they have stopped giving alms of fruits from their trees, and sarita api ashushyan, whether the rivers have dried up, that you don't have water, you have to go and ask water from somebody. Ruddha guha, whether the caves and the mountains are closed, that you can't go and take rest there, that you require to stay in somebody's room, somebody's house, or in a flat or an apartment. Over and above all, kim ajita avati uh, na upasanna. Over and above all, uh, does the Almighty Lord not protect the fully surrendered soul? Kim ajita avati na upasannan? Is he not protecting his surrendered souls? So he's protecting, right? Therefore, kasmat bhajanti kavaya, why are we going to dhanadurmadhan dan, going to rich people, well-to-do people, and flattering them, glorifying them, appreciating them, and begging from them? So why then do the learned sages go to flatter those who are intoxicated by hard-earned wealth? So the spirit of this verse is that uh, the Lord has made all arrangements for our comfortable living in this world in terms of our need and in terms of even protection. We don't have to depend on anything, but that requires great realization. So that's the position of an elevated devotee or a sage or a sannyasi. So that is first class living. So, so Prabhupada is saying the general rule is that a mendicant devotee will accept a simple loincloth without asking anyone to give clothes in charity. So sometimes there is rejected cloth on the roadside, he will pick up that. Or sometimes, Prabhupada says, when the dead body is burnt, sometimes there is some cloth left over. He may even accept that. The idea here is that he does not have to depend on anyone, even for his basic clothing. And when he is hungry, he will simply take some fruits from the trees. So much fruits are growing. So the trees are so magnanimous. So he'll collect some fruits from the tree. And when he's thirsty, he can drink some water from the nearby rivers. And he does not require a comfortable house because he can live in the mountains, in the caves in the mountains. And he does not have to be afraid of jungle animals also. He is trained in that way because he has complete faith in the Lord that the Lord is there to protect him. Again, this also requires realization. Just like there's a practical example in the life of Haridas Thakur. Haridas Thakur was living in the cave of a mountain. And because of his great devotion, many devotees would come every day to take his blessings and have his darshan. So one day, the local people, when they came to meet Haridas Thakur, they got to know that there is a python just behind Haridas Thakur, also residing in the cave. So there were two inhabitants in the cave. One is Haridas Thakur, one more is the python. So they both were staying in the cave. The Haridas Thakur didn't even knew that. Then one gentleman came and said, "My dear Haridas, we are hesitating to come to meet you because there is a python in the cave." Then Haridas Thakur said, thought, "Oh, really? Okay. So why should I disturb the python? Let me move away from the cave. Cave is a place for the python to stay. So let the python stay there. I will go away." So when he decided to get up and go away from the cave, actually the python in front of everybody crawled out of the cave and went into the forest. So Prabhupada says actually the Lord is there in the heart of everyone, including the python. And he is also in the heart of Haridas Thakur. So when he understood what was there in the heart of Haridas Thakur, he thought, the Lord thought, oh, Haridas Thakur should not leave the cave. So many people are coming to take his darshan and blessings. So the Lord in the heart of Haridas Thakur uh, uh, informed the Lord in the heart of the python. And the python was informed by the Lord to move away from that cave. So in that way the python moved. So Haridas Thakur was fearless. You can see how the Lord is protecting his devotees. So there's nothing to fear in this world. There is one more uh, example Srila Prabhupada quotes, taking a verse from the Bhagavad Gita, a very famous verse, Yogakshemam Vahamyaham. Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Jana Paryupasate Tesham Nityabhayuktanam Yogakshemam Vahamyaham. So Krishna is saying, those who are exclusively dedicated to serving me and extremely devoted to me and who have nothing else in their life than to serve me in great devotion, to them, to those devotees who are fully dedicated to my service, Krishna is saying, I will carry what they lack, I will provide what they lack, and I will preserve what they have. This Krishna is saying. So in order to show by example, so far we saw in the life of devotees here, their experience, Haridas Thakur's experience, Raghunath Das Goswami's experience of depending on the Lord. And the Lord himself, in order to show the world that he will personally protect and take care of all the devotees' needs, did one very wonderful pastime. There was one nice devotee, a Brahmana devotee. He was reading Bhagavad Gita every single day. And when he came to this verse, which is in the 9th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, this verse, Ananyas Chintayanto Mam, which means that Krishna says, personally, I will carry what my devotee needs and protect him. Even all the material needs, I will carry, I will arrange. Whatever we need. So, Yogakshemam Vahami Aham. Aham means Krishna saying, me. I will personally arrange whatever my devotee needs. So this Brahmana was reading that, then he thought, I will arrange means Krishna will make some arrangement through somebody. He'll send somebody or he'll make his business flourish. Something Krishna will arrange. So he cancelled Vahamayaham and wrote as Dadamayaham. Means Krishna will make arrangement. But Krishna is saying, no, I will personally carry. I will only bring everything to my devotee. That's what Krishna said. So anyway, so he struck those two words, and then he kept the Bhagavad Gita, and they were very, very poor, very, very poor. And somehow he was very devoted to Bhagavad Gita. Although they were very poverty stricken, this Brahmana would not give up reading Bhagavad Gita any single day. He was so devoted to reading Bhagavad Gita. So his wife, she said that there is nothing left at home for eating, so you have to get something. Then he goes out for bhiksha, as it is explained here. He goes out for bhiksha, and somehow that day he could not get any bhiksha. It was late afternoon, so he was very unhappy. He thought maybe this is the Lord's will today that I don't get any bhiksha. So he was returning home. But before, um, so he was returning home. And when he returned home, there was a big feast ready, cooked by his wife. And he had a nice prasadam. And again he went back to his Bhagavad Gita study once again. He was surprised to see that what he had struck, that line, Yogaksham Vahamyam, that what he has struck, that is missing. That means again it is back to the original Yogakshemam Vahamyam. He was surprised. He said, did you take my book? Did you do any corrections in the Bhagavad Gita? He said, no, 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 I have not taken your Bhagavad Gita. He was surprised. How can what I have struck uh, be absent? So he was surprised actually. Then he asked his wife, how did you make this feast? Because I didn't bring any bhiksha. How did you make this feast? Then she said, actually, I also want to tell you, just before you came, two boys came to our house asking for your name, quoting your name. And those boys, they were carrying huge quantity of provisions, rice, atta, dal, vegetables, so many things. And then they came to our house and delivered all the provisions. And then they said, Mother, please don't. Then the mother said that this Brahmin's wife said, why don't you stay back? I'll cook and give you prasadam. No, 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 we have to leave early before your husband comes. Because he is little upset with us that we initially disagreed to carry this heavy load of provisions. It was quite heavy. So this Brahmana was little angry at us, and then he even beat us. And you can see mother see the scar here at the back, at our back. So actually they showed the scar and there was blood coming. So she felt very sorry for these small young boys. Anyway, the boy said, no, 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 nothing to worry. That's okay. So we will come another time, and then they left. So she said to her husband, I'm surprised at how you can chastise and beat the boys, that there's blood coming. Then he said, I beat the boys, I sent provisions. No, 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 no. How is this possible? I never sent any boys to send provisions. In fact, today I didn't get any bhiksha. Then he was surprised. Then he asked to describe the boys, how they were. He said one was a black boy, one was a white boy. So he's looking very, very cute. So then he realized, oh my God, Krishna and Balaram personally came and delivered provisions at our home. He said, you are so fortunate to have direct darshan of Krishna and Balaram. And they personally proved me that actually Krishna and Balaram will personally bring supply all our needs. So this is a fact. So in this way, uh, we can actually see the Lord himself is showing by example how he is actually arranging for the devotees. And the devotees also have lived depending on the Lord. So, so this is first class living. Prabhupada also all through his life demonstrated depending on the Lord completely. That's why you see why he went with 30 rupees otherwise. It's actually a practical demonstration of depending on the Lord. He had no arrangement when he went to the West, no place of residence. Nobody has invited Prabhupada. to the Western world to come and preach. So only in the order of his guru he went. So he had no residence, no arrangement for food, no shelter, no arrangement for clothes. What was the next meal? Where is he going? Where is he going? You know, there's no arrangement being made. He completely dependent on the Lord by his personal example. Prabhupada writes in his Jaladuta diary, September 10, 1965, like this. Today the ship is flying very smoothly. I feel today better because he had 2 heart attacks. So he's saying, I feel better today. There was also seasickness, so which is very common when you travel in the ocean. So I feel today better, but I'm feeling separation from Sri Vrindavan and my lords Sri Govinda Gopinatha and Radha Damodar. My only solace is Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, in which I am tasting the nectarine of Lord Chaitanya's Leela. I have left Bharata Bhumi just to execute the order of Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati in pursuance of Lord Chaitanya's order. I have no qualification, but I have taken up the risk just to carry out the order of His divine grace. I depend fully on their mercy so far away from Vrindavan. So this is actually a reality. Although he's writing this in the Jalatuta diary in the ship, when he actually reached America, this is actually a fact because he didn't have any acquaintance, any money, any element for food, stay, everything. And as far as in the same lines, if you see in our life in ISKCON particularly, it's very interesting to note. By Prabhupada's mercy and grace, actually we are automatically following this standard of first class standard of living by depending on the Lord fully. How? Actually, if we stick on to this idea of depending on the temple exclusively, this is actually depending on Krishna's arrangement, Krishna's mercy directly for our maintenance. We are not depending on anybody for our maintenance, provided we depend only on the temple. Whatever the temple is providing, the lordships Krishna and Balaram providing, we depend only on that. It is actually, it actually means we are practicing depending directly on the Lord. So that is why we should never take any help from anybody, from the donors, from the people outside. We never take any personal help and personal favor from anyone. Sometimes people offer mobile, people offer car, people offer clothes, even to devotees when go for preaching. They may offer, we give it to temple, but you should not take it for yourself. Whatever temple is giving and whatever we need, temple is anyway providing. This is actually practicing uh, direct dependence on the Lord. But if we go ahead asking something, either from the temple or from outside, that means actually you're depending on external arrangements. But if you don't ask and you are being provided for in the temple, this is actually first class living. We are practicing depending on the Lord, on the mercy of the Lord, and we will realize that. Prabhupada said one point very nicely. When in this world, an ordinary boss or an owner can is maintaining all these men, his workers, his staff. In this world, so many owners are there who are maintaining their staff, and the staff don't think much. They know for sure my master will maintain us, take care of us. So Prabhupada is saying, because somebody asked Prabhupada, actually there was one place when somebody asked Prabhupada, how are you all being maintained? How are you, what are you doing for your money, for your maintenance? Prabhupada asked him, where are you from? He said, I'm working in so and so place. He said, are you getting a salary regularly? Yes, he says, my boss is very nice. Every month I get my salary. He's maintaining me very nicely. Prabhupada said, then imagine if your boss is maintaining you so nicely because you are working for him. We're all working for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Will he not maintain us? We're eating little prasadam. So this is actually reality. So the Lord will certainly maintain us and we don't have to have any anxiety at any point. I'll stop here. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.